What's up guys, it's the Sound Alchemist, and today I am doing lore on one of the Chaos Primarchs, one that you can say was the sole reason for the Horus Heresy itself. That's right, I'm talking about Lorgar Aurelian of the Wordbearers. So let's get into this lore. The infant Primarch Lorgar vanished from the Emperor's gene laboratory beneath the Himalayan mountains on Terra while he was still an infant in his gestation capsule, along with the 19 other Primarchs, who were all transported through the warp and scattered to random human-inhabited worlds across the galaxy. His capsule came to rest on the theocratic feudal world of Colchis. When the infant Lorgar fell from the sky, his legion had yet to be born on Terra, and the faith of Colchis was held in the hands of a ruling priesthood called the Covenant. Discovered by the followers of this predominant religion of Colchis, the Covenant, later known as the Old Faith, or the Old Ways, was a polytheistic religion dedicated to the worship of entities that were in fact the Chaos Gods. Studying within a temple of the Covenant, Lorgar quickly became a devout preacher. His skills in oratory and the power of his charisma won him many followers. Perhaps Lorgar's staunchest ally and friend was a high priest of the Covenant, a cleric named Cor Pharaon. However, as Lorgar grew in standing amongst the people and other members of the Covenant's ecclesiastical hierarchy, he began to grow jealous of his popularity. Lorgar's youth was plagued by visions of a mighty warrior in gleaming bronze armor coming to Colchis, a cyclopean giant in blue robes standing beside him. At one point, the visions reached such an intensity that Lorgar claimed that he prophesied the return of Colchis' one true god. He began to preach the news to the people of Colchis, causing disruptions to the theocratic rule of the Covenant as people converted over to his dissident beliefs in the one god. His beliefs won so many people over that they became a new faction of the Covenant who called themselves the Godsworn. Lorgar's enemies in the Covenant saw this as the opportunity they had been waiting for to remove the threat that Lorgar presented to the status quo, declaring him a heretic to the old ways. Those of the Covenant who came forward to arrest Lorgar were killed by his followers. The Covenant split into two factions, and a holy war of immense proportions erupted, eventually forcing the entire population of the world to choose a side. This war lasted 6 years, ending when Lorgar and his Godsworn supporters stormed the Temple of the Covenant, known as the Cathedral of Illumination. Lorgar, now named Archpriest of the Reformed Covenant, promised the masses that their new god would arrive on Colchis no more than a year after their victory, and that they would come to know him only as the Emperor. Cor Pharaon expressively explained to his adopted son that he remained a believer in the other gods of the Old Faith, but that he also believed that the one god was the most powerful of their number. This continued belief in the old ways, also maintained by many other Colchisians after the Godsworn's victory, would lay the foundation for the Wordbearers' eventual turn to chaos. When the Emperor finally arrived, he descended from his landing craft with Magnus the Red at his side. There could be no doubt in Lorgar's mind that he knelt before this new god. Beside him, a planet knelt and believed the same. Lorgar saw this preordained meeting as a confirmation of his many visions and prophecies, and so the Primarch and his people wholeheartedly embraced the ruler of the Imperium as their promised Messiah and God Emperor. The Emperor then ordered Lorgar to take his best warriors and induct them into the Space Marine Legion known as the Imperial Heralds. They had been derived from his own genome. Lorgar quickly took up the Emperor's purpose, expressing his deeply held desire to spread his faith in the God Emperor to every world in the Imperium, despite the Emperor's continuing admonishments that his Imperium was to be built on the foundation of the Imperial truth, not a religious faith. Lorgar agreed. He then joined his father and his legion on the Great Crusade to reunify the human worlds of the galaxy under this new Imperium. Lorgar appointed trustworthy regents to rule over Colchis in his absence, and he devoutly complied with what he believed were his father's divine commandments. That the Emperor claimed he was not divine paradoxically only further strengthened Lorgar's faith in him, as who else but a true god would claim that he was not divine? Every facet of the Covenant's belief structure was reorganized as the worship of the Emperor as the savior of mankind, and the people of Colchis united behind their new living god. The elaborate celebrations and displays of piety lasted for months, although it was said that the Emperor did not approve of this, wishing to rejoin the Great Crusade as soon as possible, and being dismissive of organized religion in general. The Emperor had not begun the Great Crusade to reshackle humanity within the chains of superstition and ignorance, but to spread the light of reason and science. At the conclusion of these celebrations, Lorgar was made commander of the Space Marine Legion, who would later become known as the Word Bearers. Cor Phaeron survived this augmentation process to become an adult Space Marine, and become Lorgar's chief advisor, lieutenant, and commander of the Word Bearers Elite, 1st Company. The belief that the Emperor was a god was not a new one. From the days of his first conquest, there were some who whispered that he was not of this mortal realm. Many of his conquered enemies were amongst the first to call him divine. Faced with his power and the destruction of everything they had known, they called him by the ancient names, that being their only way to rationalize what had happened. Some called him an angel, others a spirit, some a demon. Others placed his nature higher still. God they called him, and they spoke prayers to him in the watches of the night and under the light of lost suns. The worship of idols, the practices of mystics, and the falseness of countless gods, all were condemned without measure, but on the nature of his Lord and Father, Lorgar remained silent. Perhaps the most manifest display of this belief was now that the infamous Tco Divinities was a document written by Lorgar expressing his belief that the rational basis for his beliefs were in the divine nature of the Emperor of mankind. Ironically, this document created a foundation for what would later become the imperial cult during the Emperor's own lifetime, for the new religion would eventually emerge during the 32nd millennium on the myriad worlds of the Imperium following the Emperor's interment in the Golden Throne. Lorgar led his legion throughout the Great Crusade as the Word-Bearers sought to eliminate all blasphemy and heresy from within the new Imperium of Man. Ancient texts and icons of other faiths were burned. The greatest chaplains of the Word-Bearers pronounced enormous works on the divinity and righteousness of the Emperor and gave grand speeches and sermons to the masses. The progress of the Word-Bearers was slow in bringing in new worlds under imperial compliance, but domination of the defeated was complete. Lorgar was an unusual Primarch because he was less martial in nature than his brothers, and he possessed an abiding faith that the religion represented a pinnacle of human expression, and a deeply held belief that the Emperor of mankind was actually a divine being made manifest in the mortal realm. As a result, Lorgar was determined to spread his own faith in the Emperor to every world that his legion encountered in the course of the Great Crusade, a policy that would be in direct contradiction to the principles of the imperial truth. Yet Lorgar was also never respected by his brothers, largely because he was never comfortable with his own gifts and less prone to violence than they. This caused the other Primarchs to believe that their soulful, intellectual brother was a weakling, the runt of the Emperor's litter. While other legions left conquest like bloody footprints on the stars, the Word-Bearers did not. Faith in secrecy may be sincere, but ultimately it cannot satisfy a driven soul. With the Great Crusade reaching its zenith, Lorgar was faced with worlds brought to compliance by his legion, broken worlds, worlds that had lived under the yoke of aliens, witches, and belief in false gods. Worlds that now had nothing but the cold comfort of being united with a universe that seemed to hold nothing greater than the truth they saw blowing on ash-laden worlds. How could he know the truth and deny it to these worlds? At least that seemed the likely path that led him to make his crusade not one of rationality, but of faith. As worlds and star systems fell to the word-bearers, they were brought to believe in the Emperor as a god. Amidst the devastation, they raised temples. Chaplains and mortal vassal preachers would go amongst the conquered to speak of the god who now reigned over them. Lorgar himself delivered countless speeches and sermons, converting millions to the worship of the Emperor with his words alone. The foundations of new cities were sunk in the embers of the old. Vast monuments and cathedrals dedicated to the worship of the Emperor were erected upon mounds of corpses, belonging to those who had resisted conversion. The worlds they refounded grew and prospered, their people utterly loyal to the Imperium and the Emperor. They were compliant, but they were alone in an unholy land. Though they did not see it, their piety was doomed from the moment the word-bearers brought it to them. At the last, it was not talk of belief that brought the word-bearers' wrongs to light, but the arithmetic of conquest. Conquering worlds took time and resources, but rebuilding them and bringing them to believe in the Emperor as a god took far longer. Over the years, the word-bearers' rate of conquest had slowed to a crawl. Where the other legions brought dozens of worlds to imperial compliance, the word-bearers would claim a handful by comparison. Eventually, this could not be ignored any longer. The military bureaucracy that had grown up around the War Council sent expeditions to a cluster of worlds conquered by the word-bearers. Was there some factor that had caused the word-bearers great difficulty than other legions? The emissaries and expeditions found their answer. Enough was enough. The Emperor, for all his love of his son, he was deeply disturbed. He had initially tolerated the beliefs of his deeply religious son, but as the Great Crusade reached its height, the Emperor found himself increasingly frustrated with the slow pace for which Lorgar conquered and then brought worlds into compliance for the Imperium. The Emperor had no choice but to order the word-bearers to cease their religious activities, as their mission was to reunify the galaxy under the banner of the secular imperial truth, not preach the word of the Emperor's personal divinity. The Emperor rose from his endeavors and called another of his sons to his side. Roboute Guilliman, the Primarch of the Ultramarines Legion, had a reputation for careful leadership and unbending honesty. No one else witnessed what passed between the two, and Lord Guilliman refused to speak of it, but it can be speculated why the Emperor chose the Ultramarines to be his tool of censure. It seemed clear that the Emperor did not wish Lorgar or his sons broken, merely set back on the correct path. The Ultramarines Legion was a legion with a great record of victories and compliant worlds. Ultramar was even then a growing realm of hundreds of obedient and prosperous star systems. Across the galaxy, the Ultramarines had pushed back the boundaries of the Imperium with energy and a mind for what should follow in the wake of war. They were the word-bearers' mirror and shadow, alike in so many ways and different in so many others, a living example of what the word-bearers could be. Perhaps that was the message carried by the choice of the Ultramarines, that there was hope for glory beyond the shame that must come. Whatever the subtleties of the message of censure, it would, however, be delivered in a manner that could leave no doubt to its meaning. The Emperor ordered a task force composed of the entire Ultramarines Legion and accompanied by a force of his elite personal bodyguards, the Legio Custodes, and the Imperial Regent, Malcador the Sigillite, to raise the capital city of the planet Curve, a world held dear to the word-bearers. Following the city's destruction by the Ultramarines, the entire Word-Bearers Legion, 100,000 Space Marines strong, were ordered to assemble on the planet's surface, from within sight of the smoldering ruins of Monarchia, where its Astartes were humiliated and then rebuked by the Emperor himself. The Emperor psychically forced everyone, including Lorgar, to kneel before him in the ashes of a city which stood for all they had believed in and done. He explained to them that they had failed both him and humanity. He was no god, and he would suffer no such belief in this realm of his. The Emperor departed, leaving a Primarch chastised and a legion humbled. Lorgar was stunned by his father's reproach and refusal to accept his worship, and fell into a deep melancholy. Some say that this was what would shape the future to come in the Warhammer universe. And with that, we finish the lore on Lorgar Aurelian, but only the first part. So stay tuned for part 2 and more epic 40k facts to come. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more epic 40k content. And as always guys, you know me as a Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and I am signing out.